Everybody, this is Sam Feifel, Content Director here at the International Association of Privacy Professionals, better known as the IAPP. We are happy to have you join us here for the speaker orientation call for the IAPP Canada Privacy Symposium, which I see is very pink this year. We used to be more of a red, but it seems that we've gone pink. I'm not sure if that's our screen here or if that's reality. Who knows? Anyway, I hope you guys all like pink. What we're going to do over the course of this call, we thank you very much for joining us, is just go through some operational details so that there is no confusion on the where, when, that sort of thing. And then we'll introduce some people that you can reach out to if you need help in any way. And then we're going to talk just a little bit about our expectations for presentations at our events, the feedback that we've gotten from our members who attend, and just some sort of general tips on giving a good presentation and being successful with your presentation at the symposium. So before we get too far, I want to introduce the people that may or may not speak on this call. There are 4 people in this room. We are in the great state of New Hampshire, in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, on a former Air Force base. So, you know, we are well fortified here in the warehouse, bunkered down. Nothing bad can happen to us. So across from me is Dave Cohen, someone you might remember from our web conferences, also helps us with speaker programming. Say hi, Dave. Hey, everybody. Next to him is Amanda Charbonneau, who has a wonderful French last name, so should be familiar to you. She will also be the speaker manager for this event, the person that sends you emails. Say hi, Amanda.
Hello, everyone.
And far, far away from our conference microphone, so you probably can't hear him. He may or may not be in Afghanistan, is Rick Habib.
Hello, everyone.
Rick is a well-versed performer, so has a nice, hearty voice. You may or may not hear from Rick. He is our speaker manager for all of our events, so he is often somebody that can help Amanda on this event. He may hassle you for a headshot or a bio or anything like that, but we will get to those things. So, Dave, let us proceed. All right, so first I'm going to turn it over to Amanda. She is going to handle the operational details portion of this presentation.
Hello, everyone. So if you've attended our symposium or spoken before, you'll be happy to know that we're returning to the adjoining Metro Toronto Convention Center and Intercontinental Hotel in downtown Toronto. I've included a link to a map and directions as well as rates for parking. We're actually going to be distributing this webcon along with the slides after the call, so no worries. You'll get the links and all the documents post-call. So what is going on? On Monday, May 15th, it's a training day only. Tuesday, May 16th, is going to be a training day and workshops. Wednesday, May 17th, is going to be day 1 of the main conference, and you'll also notice our privacy soiree on that day 1. Great networking opportunity and just a lot of fun. On Thursday, May 18th, you've got day 2 of the main conference. And if you'd like to participate in any of those trainings or workshops, just know that this is going to be an additional fee on top of your complimentary speaker pass.
Ooh, look at the slide action.
Look
That's
at that
nice.
slide action. We are fancy, and we are owning it. So for hotels and accommodations, like I mentioned, we're going to be at the Intercontinental Toronto Centre Hotel. There's a map and directions included in the slide. We do have a room block available. It's going to be $239 per night. Make sure when you call, if you're looking for a room, to specifically mention the IAPP. And do note that this offer expires on April 12th. So if you know you're going to need accommodations, please do so sooner the better. And then Metro Toronto Convention Center is where the actual conference will be held. Logistics and demographics. So we're expecting over 500 attendees. Financial services, public sector, and healthcare were the top 3 industries in attendance from last year. The average attendance per session at Symposium is 63 people, and a list of organizations who attended last year's Symposium is going to be circulated by myself after this call. You're also going to want to check out the online schedule. Just make sure your session looks good, find out the time, the rooms, make sure your name and title are correct. Those are all really helpful for us. Breakout rooms range in size from a max capacity of 60 to 280. And then in regards to registration, some of you have been asking about this, and I do want to let you know that the IAPP is actually taking care of your registration as a speaker or program chair. So you'll receive a complimentary pass for the main conference. Important to note, if you have any dietary restrictions, if you can please email me, that would be very helpful. And some rules that are important. If you have to make any changes to your panel, speakers, content, it's really important to run that by us just for the integrity of our programming process. So if you know something's going to be changing, if you could please email me, that would be wonderful. And also, new this year, if you are using a PowerPoint for your presentation, please, please make sure to use the IAPP branded PowerPoint, which is going to be included in this slideshow that I distribute post-call. So what is due now? If you could send us your headshot as soon as possible, along with your bio, this would be wonderful. You can check if we have that information on file by visiting our website, which the link is in this presentation, and you'll know that you need to send me your headshot because you will have a sad gray face by your name. It's so sad. Please send us your headshots. We'll even take your iPhone selfies at this point. So if your bio is missing or outdated, also please feel free to email me and I'd be happy to update that for you. Bio should be 100 words max. Also, another important deadline is going to be April 7th. So this is when you're going to be reaching out to your program chair to have them review your abstract, along with any presentation drafts and handouts that you may have. Some people have been asking me what constitutes as a draft. This doesn't mean you have to send your entire draft presentation to your chair. We just want to make sure you have something to be able to discuss with your chair to make sure that they understand the flow of your presentation and overall what that looks like. Our program chairs are content experts who can assist with your presentation along with any questions you may have. April 28th is going to be a big, important deadline you need to remember. This is when you send your final presentation and special AV needs to your chair. So this is going to be your final cleaned up, polished presentation that you send out to the chair. If you get this to us in time, we're able to post this actually to the website so conference attendees can access this, and it's just a very handy thing to have. Just for speakers, if you need a place to prepare for your session, go visit the co-workspace. It's a great space to organize your materials and meet with your fellow panelists. The co-workspace will be located in High Park, and it's available during the main 2 days of the conference, Wednesday, May 17th, 8 to 5:30, and then Thursday, day 2 on May 18th, 8 to 4:15. And then last but not least, audio and visual information. Like I've mentioned a couple times, because it's important, please use our IAPP branded PowerPoint if you're going to be utilizing a PowerPoint for your presentation. If you're on a panel, please combine panelist presentations into one deck. You're required to bring your presentation on a USB key. And our standard AV setup for each session room includes the following items. If you have something you don't see below, let us know by April 28th, and we'll do our best to accommodate your needs. This includes projector, screen, audio, laptop, podium mic, table mics, and a slide advancer. And I'm going to ping it back to Sam to tell you a little bit more about how you can promote your session.
That is wonderful, Amanda. That might be the best operational details have ever been presented on one of these calls. That is absolutely spectacular. So I want to just emphasize a couple of points there. One is the deadlines. The sad gray non-headshot is a real thing, right? So if I'm deciding which one to go to and I click on the speakers and I see the sad gray headshot, there's no way I'm going to see that person speak, because who wants to listen to a sad gray headshot speak? That's awful. So it's in your own best interest to get your smiling face up there. Unfortunately, if you're attending this and you've put it in your calendar, you're probably one of the people that got us a headshot. So I'm probably speaking to people who follow the rules, but we're going to emphasize that anyway. More importantly is the deadline around getting your presentation in. The reason we ask for this is because we post all the presentations that we get so that people can download the slides in real time as they are watching you present, should they want to. This will keep people saying, hey, we're going to get a copy of the slides. Can you email me the slides? You'll be able to say right in your presentation, go right online, click the download presentation. You can have it immediately. It's a great way to keep people focused in the room and make sure they can take notes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. This is Dave. I wanted to also jump in and underscore something that was mentioned a moment ago, and that is to review your session description online. One piece of criticism that we sometimes get following the conferences is that I went to the session, I walked in the room, I sat down, and I was expecting to hear one thing and I heard something very different. So please know that people do read those session descriptions and they use them to decide what sessions they want to go to. Oftentimes when they have 2 or 3 they want to go to, they choose yours because they really want to be there and they're expecting to hear what was written up in that paragraph. So that paragraph does matter. So please review it and make sure that it matches the content as close as possible that you deliver in the room.
Great point, Dave. That is certainly high amongst the list of criticisms we get, is the panel wasn't what I thought it was. All right, so we want to make sure that you as volunteers also get sort of as much exposure and benefit as you can. And also, if you want to drum up attendance, that you can do so. We have a number of publications here at the IAPP that you can take advantage of. Dave, as I said earlier, heads up all of our web conferences. If you think there is an ancillary WebCon topic that would help kind of set up your session, or if you think there's a deep dive after the fact that would extend the message there, Dave is always looking for web conferences, especially in the Canadian realm.
Yes, absolutely.
We need to check that box for our CIPPC holders so that they can get their CPEs. This is a great way to do it, is to use some of these Canadian-specific presentations. You can present to the 500 people who show up at Symposium, but then you can also present to the world at large if it makes sense. Similarly, Privacy Perspectives is our op-ed page. If yours is opinion-focused, you might want to tee up your presentation that way. The Advisor is more of our how-to operational piece. Privacy Tracker looks at the progression of laws and moves through the system. Privacy Tech is for, as you might expect, the technology that drives privacy. If you think your presentation could be teed up or augmented or anything like that, please let us know, and we'll get one of our editors in touch with you, and we'll get that ball rolling. The other thing you can do is, if you're one of those social media types, don't tell Facebook, but I am no longer on Facebook myself because it was making my life demonstrably worse. But should you be one of those people that enjoys the social media experience, let us know about that too, because we actually have it as part of our social media plan to, call out and welcome as many of our speakers as possible to our event. We want to use our Privacy Pros account on Twitter or our Facebook page to link up with our speakers and draw attention to the great work that you're doing. So, hit us up with an @ on Twitter or tag us on Facebook, and we will return the favor. We're definitely, if you've got a handle on Twitter and you're using it often, let us know about that, and we'll get our social media team working on that. So, we've just rambled for a little bit. There is a Q&A bar right there on the right-hand side of your screen. That's where you can type in questions and we can address them. Now is the time to type in any questions about operations or leading up to the event or PowerPoint details, although I'm going to go a little bit more into PowerPoints in a second. If you've got any questions, feel free to chime in and I will address them as they come in. So do know that that's an opportunity for you. So second half of our piece is how to have a successful presentation at our event. One of the things that we get a question on all the time is, who are these people? What kind of people come to your event? So to set the stage, we get, a lot of variety in the people that attend, especially in Canada. We have, a lot of first-time attendees, people who are asked to go figure this privacy thing out, and we are the largest privacy event in Canada, so they show up. We also have veterans who have been coming for the entirety of the 10 years of the conference existence. There's a wide spectrum. As you saw, we are very heavy in the public sector. We are very heavy in the healthcare sector, so you can expect to have those sorts of people in your room. And one of the things that we encourage people to do is right off the bat kind of do a check of who is in the room. Do we have a lot of veterans? Do we have a lot of rookies? That might help you sort of frame your event, frame your presentation. And the other thing to do is use those veterans if you see them in there. The IAPP is very tight as a membership organization. Our veterans love to help and take part. Use them. If you see veterans raise their hands, use the Socratic method to call them out and ask them about their experiences. Ask them to, augment something you're saying with seeing whether that jives with their experience. That's something that's usually pretty successful in our events. So the bullet points you're seeing are pretty self-explanatory. We'll move forward from this here. Ask those questions at the beginning to figure out who they are. One of the things that we do get often is I couldn't apply this information. It was a little bit too basic. I wanted to get a little deeper into the specific details. People love real-world anecdotes. If you can take a general sort of policy idea and make that practical and show about how that it plays out in the actual sort of workplace, that's what people want, right? So, we've seen the IAPP evolve quite a bit in the last 5 years. It's moved from the what is privacy, how do I create a privacy policy, to how the heck do I actually do this? How do I staff up? Whose job is that? Which person is in charge of that? Who do I talk to? How long is that going to take? What form do I use? All those nitty-gritty details are where we are in privacy right now, especially in the Canadian public sector where, they've been doing privacy for a little while now. This isn't brand new stuff. They are going to want, tips of, very applicable quality.
Yeah, let me jump in and just emphasize what Sam was just saying again. This is Dave. I can't state this strongly enough. Another complaint that we frequently get, as Sam mentioned, is it was too high level or even worse. I just spent an hour sitting in a room hearing people lay out problems that I know existed and that we all know existed. Really what people want to hear are your anecdotes and certainly, of course, your success stories, ways you've found to overcome the obstacles you have in your day-to-day work. But if you're willing and courageous enough, they also want to hear your fails, right? They want to hear what wrong, what you did about it, what you learned from it. Seriously, we get some very positive feedback when people are willing to say, hey, this is something that we tried, this is a problem that we encountered, didn't work quite right, we were able to tweak it and make it happen eventually, and so those are the kinds of things that people really value.
All right, we have a few questions coming in. Let's take a look at those before we move on. Interaction, think of flipboards. Yeah, people definitely use flipboards from time to time. If you see your panel being very interactive, that's something that we can get. We generally have those available. Providing our key too. So there will be an AV person in each room, so just bring your USB that, kind of stand there awkwardly at the front, and the AV person will come and take care of you. We have laptops set up already ready to rock and roll in each room, so you just throw that key in there, drag it down. Try not to give us any special malware that we're going to have to deal with later, but that's no problem at all. Let's see. Yes, we went to the uniform presentation template because people were showing up with the wrong aspect ratio, their fonts were breaking and flipping off the page. It was just ugly stuff, and our technicians were having to scramble, or our speakers were having to scramble to get everything looking right. If you would like to put your organization's logo in the corner that the IAPP logo is not in, that's fine. That's something that people do. But, of course, we are keeping ourselves as far away from a sales pitch as possible. You may or may not have a sponsored session, and we understand the goal there is to get in front of people. But as you're going to hear me say later, anything that smells like a self-promotion or sales presentation is going to be frowned upon. Then our last question here is, are we able to get a wireless mic so we're not stuck behind the podium? Yes, we do have handheld wireless mics. That shouldn't be a problem. Those lavalier mics that clip on to, like, you know, your collar are a little bit more expensive, so we try to avoid those, but the wireless mic is fine. Just kind of hold it up to your face, and everything seems to work pretty well. Oh, we have another one. Is it possible to get a breakout room near our presentation room so we can split the group up into two for case studies? No, we can't have a second room. We just, rooms are expensive, so they're all full up for sure. Can we see the setups for the pre-conference ahead of time and change to facilitate the session? Yeah, we can show you how the room is going to be set up for sure. Generally, we have them set in rounds for the workshops, but we can look into that, Larry. Reach out to, why don't you reach out to Amanda, and she'll get that information for you, because we do set up the rooms differently, and if it's a way that's not good for that, we'll figure it out. All right, so let's keep moving through the making the session more advanced. So this is something that we get feedback on a lot is, even though it seems kind of silly sometimes, having that agenda at the beginning of the session so people kind of know where it's going to start, middle, and end, and what you're trying to accomplish. Sometimes that seems pretty obvious by the abstract, but we do get that feedback fairly often. People want to kind of orient themselves, know where they are in the presentation. And this third bullet point is really important. If you're working with multiple panelists, to emphasize Amanda's point earlier, there's one slide deck. We're not changing slide decks in the middle of a presentation. The days where, you know, it was even remotely amusing that you were bumbling around with your PowerPoint at the front of the room are long over, right? We want this to get up and get going. None of this, oh, I can't figure out how to do this. Yeah, that stinks. So make sure they're all smashed into one. Amanda can help you with that if need be. Also, you know, make sure you've coordinated with all of your panelists, even though each of you might be speaking for 20 minutes and you really have 3 separate pieces to your hour-long presentation. Just make sure that you're not rehashing stuff that someone else has covered. It's always nice to get on a call so that you have a little rapport with each other and, you know, you kind of have some idea of how things are going to work. And again, we are happy to help coordinate those conference calls if you need them to. We have a conference line, and we are happy to coordinate speakers if that's something that you need to have happen.
Let me jump in there quickly, Sam, and just say that we are actually very willing to do that. So take advantage of that. Obviously, we have a lot of experience with these things, and we're happy to host that call and to give you some feedback and some advice in terms of how long each person speaks and how to mix up the voices, et cetera, et cetera. So take advantage of us as a resource here, and do reach out if you want some help coordinating your panel.
All right, let's keep it moving here. All right, so these active learning techniques are, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on them. They're most relevant to our workshop-style presentations that are, more of the 3- and 4-hour variety than the 1-hour breakout sessions. But I want to put them in front of you because, the research is out there. It is almost impossible now for people to pay attention to someone speaking from the beginning, from the front of the room for more than 20 minutes, right? So if you are speaking without interruption at the front of the room, after 20 minutes, everybody is checking their phone. There is not a single person listening to you anymore. They have checked out. They're seeing what Sally's up to with her soccer game and, slacking their team at home. It's really important that you take some time, even an hour breakout session, to re-engage people and to check in with them. These are some ways to get people active. I'm not saying that all of them are practical for an hour, but perhaps you can take a little bit out of it. So the teach it, practice it, game it. This is just giving people a chance to sort of work with it themselves, right? So if you're talking about plain language in privacy policy, you might show them, a good example of plain language. Then you might have them practice taking something that's legal gobbledygook and turning it into plain language. And then maybe you have a contest to see whose plain language is voted by the room as the most plain. There's a variety of ways to do that, but there's really good educational research that shows giving people a safe space to practice and then having them do some competition is a great way to reinforce learning. Having them talk to each other, right? If you can just take 3 or 4 minutes in the middle of your presentation and give somebody a question to ask their neighbor and have them talk amongst themselves for 3 minutes and then bring them back together, our people love that, right? It's a good networking thing, especially, at a conference where maybe people don't know each other, right? Hey, it's an excuse where I have to talk to somebody. They get a little human interaction. The Socratic methods, a personal favorite of mine, point somebody out in the front row and ask them, is this what they experience, or where are they from, or what did they learn from, X experience that was bad or good that happened to them. Bring them out of themselves, force them to participate, put them on the spot. Maybe their ears go red for a second, but it's a great way for everybody to re-engage, even if they think, gosh, I hope he doesn't call on me next. This idea of listening teams, this is something that's really going through the educational circles, is make them into active listeners with a job, right? Before you present a specific topic, tell one half of the room that their job is to listen for poking holes in your argument, and the other is listening for the job of summarizing what your argument was. They will listen to it differently, and they will report out different things, and that can force them to think in different ways. And they're listening with a job. They're not passive. They have a plan of attack, and they're listening for certain cues in what you're saying. This can be a really great way to engage them. The host with the most, this is one of my favorite ones, is use superlatives somewhere either in the middle or the end to ask them questions. What's the most interesting thing that we talked about? What was the newest thing that we talked about? What's the most irrelevant thing that we talked about? That will get them thinking sort of in different ways about what they learned, not just what they learned. The let's get physical or visual. This is just a reminder that everybody has different learning modalities. Some people learn well visually, some people learn with some physical interaction, some people are very auditory, some people learn better if they repeat it out loud. One of the examples that I use here is, talking about privacy operations management, have them start out by drawing a picture of a house that represents their privacy program. Is it small? Does it have a lot of rooms in it? Is it broken down? Is it well funded? Is it made out of brick? Is it made out of straw? You get some really interesting things there that kind of spurs them to talk about what they're doing. The quizzical is to ask maybe halves of the room to come up with, if they pretend that you were making a test to ask people what they learned in this session. What would you ask? Have them come up with the quiz questions. And you'll often be interested in what they focused on. And then finally, I know that role-playing, if there's something that's going to get you to roll your eyes, it is role-playing. We've all been in an awful HR training where we had to do this. However, it's very important to get people to think about the other person's shoes, right? So put them through a very brief exercise where one person is the CPO and the other person is the regulator. How do they come at the issue differently? Or one person is the customer and one person is the CPO. How might they interpret the law differently? The more you can do to get people into other methods of thinking, the better. I know that was very quick, but if you have any questions on that or you want some tips on how to work those into your presentation, let me know. All right, so we get a lot of questions about PowerPoint. PowerPoint sucks. We all know that. However, it can be a helpful way to present some information. What's the sort of state of the art with PowerPoint now? Again, use our template. Don't try to get anything too fancy that's going to break on whatever machine we happen to use. No need for the transitions where things blow up. My daughter is a heavy PowerPoint user now in the 8th grade. She really likes the confetti that everything blows up to in transitions. I think that's great for 8th grade PowerPoints, maybe not for, a business conference any longer. Keep those bullet points nicely focused like you see on this slide here. The one caveat here is if you are giving a PowerPoint presentation in Japan, I've learned that if there's not 50 bullet points on there, they don't consider it real. Or at least that's my impression from going to presentations in Japan. They love the heavy detailed 2-point font. Cram it all on there. Oh, they love it. Let's keep going. The other thing is that you guys can read this here, but we get this question a lot is, do I have to have a PowerPoint? No, absolutely not. If you're just doing a panel discussion, don't feel like you need to have a PowerPoint at all. Introduce yourselves and have a great discussion and give people some information, no problem. However, one of the reasons we do encourage PowerPoints is because people do download them after the fact. This is a way to give people information that they can use after the event. So you see this last bullet point here. An additional resources slide is something that our attendees really welcome. Just a list of links where they can dive in deeper, or a link to some videos where maybe you've presented in more depth on a certain piece of this topic. That's a great reason to have a PowerPoint. Even if it's 4 slides and the last one is an additional resources, that can be something that's really helpful for people so that they can get a little more sort of bang out of their 1-hour breakout session buck.
Yeah, and on that note, I want to also state that we do get a lot of requests for the slides after the presentation. You might consider thinking about the PowerPoint as an ancillary resource to your talk. So making reference to it like, there's a lot of stuff up in here. Feel free to peruse it after the program. I'm not going to go over it in great detail, but there's some great depth, further depth here in the slides. That just multiplies the richness of the information that you're presenting. Think about it as a resource to be looked at after the presentation.
Exactly. All right, so that is pretty much the whole shebang. It looks like we have a couple of questions here. Our presentation wasn't listed in the brochure. Is that because there are so many? Yes, the brochure is meant to just be sort of a subset. No slight intended if the marketing team didn't decide yours was like the sexiest one. Marketing people don't know anything about anything anyway. I'm sure everybody's is the best. Yeah, that's it. So I'll twiddle my thumbs here and talk out loud for another couple of minutes if anybody else has any other questions. As I was saying 50 times earlier, Amanda is your point of contact for any speaker, conference, and logistics emails. Dave and myself are available if you have content questions. Your track chairs are available if you have content questions. The thing that happens the most often that we would really like you to do this the right way is if you have a speaker drop out, we need to be consulted on who that replacement person is as soon as possible. We will not impugn your character if one of your speakers drops out on you. We know that happens. You would be shocked by how many grandmothers die every conference. It is countless dead grandmothers. But we need to approve that for speaker replacement. Surely the person you've chosen is probably fine, but we keep very careful metrics on the male-to-female ratio of our speakers, on the organizations that our speakers represent, on the number of speakers that we have. So it's very important that if there are any issues with speakers, we just are consulted on that. All right, that was a lot of jibber jabber, and I don't see any QAs coming through. Anybody else have any topics that I have not covered that you would like to make sure that we have covered? No, everybody's shaking their head. All right, cool. So we really do appreciate that all of you have volunteered to speak at our conference. This is something that I sincerely believe, which is our conferences are nothing without the quality of our speakers. The IAPP community is very, very lucky to have so many people willing to volunteer their time and share their expertise with their peers and with their community. If there's anything we can do to make this experience more enjoyable for you, more effective for you, easier for you, anything at all, That is literally Amanda and Rick's jobs. They exist for no other purpose whatsoever. Exactly. They go home and twiddle their thumbs until they can come back and say, is there a speaker I can help right now? And if there isn't, they drop into this awful despair. They get sad, and they can't really move. They get lethargic.
So please help Rick and Amanda.
Right. You don't want them to be bored or anything. So thank you guys very much. Hopefully you have a great rest of the day, and that spring comes to Canada, because it hasn't come here to New England yet. We'll get it eventually. Everybody have a great day, and we'll see you in May in Toronto.